Hey guys, what's up? It's Mr Fudgito here. You're watching Unity Legacy tutorials from beginner to advanced with me, Mr Fudgito, as your tutor. So let's get started. Here I've just opened up a brand new project, completely new. I literally just went new project. I didn't select any of this, and I saved it to where I want it to be, and I named the project Tutorial Project. You should do the same. Of course, you can name the project whatever you want. You could save the project folder to wherever you want. So yeah, because we're going to be starting from beginner and moving on to advanced, I'm just going to go ahead and start out by showing you guys everything around this whole game engine. So you've got a couple of windows here. It's not too complicated. It might look a bit strange when you first open it up, but trust me, once you get the hang of it, it's very neat the way it's put out. If your window doesn't look like mine right now, with these two blocks down here, the big view over here, actually a big view over here, and your inspector over here, then simply go up to your top right hand corner where it says layout and select wide, and you should get something like this. Now from here on your project panel, which I will explain later, you see these little three lines with the arrow going down in the very top right of this window. Click that, select one column layout, and it should look exactly like this. If not, repeat that step, because there's no other way to get it to look like this other than that. Yeah, so let's get started. I'm going to talk about the project window first. So your project window is basically everything in the assets folder. So wherever you saved your project, in wherever your project folder is, right here, tutorial project, if you open that and you open assets, this is literally your project folder. So anything that I drag in here will show up here. Of course, it has to be recognized by the editor, so I can't drag in a .bat file, I don't think, and it might show up, but it won't be usable. Yeah, so this is stuff that's in your game, but it's not actually in your scene. And now I'm going to talk about the scene. So here's my scene view, obviously. Now in my scene view, I can view everything that's literally in the scene. So here's my main camera, and it's in my scene, and it's got its own position here, which I will explain later, and it can be moved about in the scene. Now if you want to change controls for the scene view, you can use these little buttons over here to change from rotation to scaling. The scaling doesn't do anything for the main camera because it has no mesh data, and moving. But what I do is I use the numbers over here because it's more precise. I will explain this window later as well. So now here comes the hierarchy. So when you get a very, very complex scene with billions of items, not billions, but lots of items, it gets really tedious when you try and find it with your mouse cursor and going around and searching for it, and then you click it, and then you do what you want, and then you gotta go find another item. So what you do is you name your game objects. So this right here is named the main camera, and I can find it in my scene view by either doing as I said before, scrolling up to it, clicking it, and there you go, it's selected. Or my hierarchy here shows everything in my scene view in list form by name. So here I've got my main camera, and the thing about the hierarchy is it shows children, which is very important to know. A child is basically a game object. It's kind of like if I spawn a cube here, now the cube is not a child of the main camera, so the cube moves and the main camera moves by itself, right? But if I make the cube a child of the main camera, simply by dragging and dropping it over the main camera, now when I try to move the main camera, first of all you see the pivot has changed and it is selected both, and now if I move it, both the main camera and the cube move together, and I can move the cube by itself. but the cube always moves with the main camera. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this cube because we don't need it. Okay, so that's the hierarchy, briefly explained. You've got a couple more tabs up here in your scene view to change the way things look in your scene view. Of course, I can't really show you these in depth because there's nothing in my scene view, but we'll definitely use this later. Gizmos, that's basically this. See, the main camera doesn't actually look like this when you play the game. This is just telling you, oh, this is a camera here, so you know that that's where the camera is. And of course, if you turn off 3D gizmos, it always shows up as the same size, so it doesn't actually have any defined size. You could set the scale of the 3D gizmos to 0 if you don't even want them. Show grid. I like to have the grid on though. And yeah, so that's that for our scene view actually, and our hierarchy, and our project. Oh, well, in the project, I'm not actually sure what these do. Oh, these are by tags. And you could, okay, yeah, you could sort in the project. I've never actually used this. We might end up using that, I don't know, but it's not really that important. It's like if you have a really trashy project, and everything is just all over the place and not sorted, but I am really keen about sorting things. So, everything will be sorted in my project. Okay, and some options here in the hierarchy, some basic options. Add tab, some random things. Not really that useful. Create objects in your hierarchy. So if you create through the hierarchy, it will immediately put whatever you create into the scene. If you create in the project, if you create in the project, it will create it and put it in the project, but it will not be in the scene until I drag and drop it in the scene. Okay, let's move on. Game panel. So this is what our game will look like. Right now it's just dead blue because there's nothing in the scene and my background is set to blue, which we can of course change. You got your maximize on play, so what this does is when I hit the play button to test the project, it will just maximize the window. You got your statistics that shows all of the very important statistics that show, you know, statistics. Pardon me. Oh, it came out of nowhere. And then of course you've got your gizmos. So what this does is, while you're playing the game, it lets you see gizmos around the scene. So you could see, for example, if I throw an audio source in, you could see there's a little gizmo that shows, oh, there's an audio source here, and then I can make sure that it's playing audio. Alright, like basically just for testing purposes. That's that. Free aspect here, you choose your aspect ratio. I prefer to go by standalone, so that I know exactly what the size of the game will be, and it will look like this. Especially helps when you're making GUI. Now your inspector. So your inspector is generally going to be, it's going to be empty unless you've selected a game object. So what your inspector does is it kind of just tells you everything about the game object you've selected. So if I pick this main camera here, boom, a bunch of info pops up. It will be sorted through components. So every single game object has a transform component, because that's what defines the scale, rotation, and position of your object in the scene. And if it doesn't have that, then your object will not, it will be inexistent. That's like the main thing that every single game object has, besides a name, a tag, and a layer. Oh, well, that's cool. I didn't even know about that. See, I'm learning new things already. Then you've got your camera component, in this one specifically. Not every game object has a camera. You could literally add billions of components to anything you want, and the range of components is just huge. But what the inspector does is it tells you all the components in the game object, and it lets you specify variables and add scripts and change whatnot. So for example, as I mentioned, the background, that's blue. If I want to change the background, within my main camera, in the camera component, I've got the background option right here. Just click right there, choose my new color, and it's done. There you go. I could change my projection from perspective to orthographic if I want to go into 2D development of some sort. Field of view, I'm just going to set this to 90, but it doesn't matter because I'm going to get rid of this game object anyway. Your near clipping pane, your far clipping pane, all kinds of stuff. These obviously don't show any data because these are just flat out things that do things that don't need to be specified. For example, an audio listener, it just makes sure that you can hear sound with this game object. And there's nothing that needs to be specified there. Everything is specified through the audio sources. Flare layer basically just lets you see flares. GUI layer lets you see GUI. And that's about it. So add components. There's a lot of components here. You don't need to go through all of them, especially because it's going to kill a lot of time. I'm already above the 10-minute mark. Now, so that's that. And now you've got the file, edit, assets, game object, component window, and help. So file, all these save and build and stuff like that. I don't really need to go into too much depth with all this because it's all going to be brought up in the future when it's actually needed, and then I'll talk about it more. And then you've got your edit, of course, here. A bunch of stuff. Some of this I don't even know what it does. Preferences, da-da-da. And you got your assets window where you can create an asset, and this does exactly what clicking create here in your project panel would do. See, the menu is literally the exact same. Create other. Of course, from here you can choose to create an empty game object that gets thrown. Actually, sorry, no. It doesn't do exactly what it would be if you clicked it in the project panel. It would do exactly what it does if you clicked it in the hierarchy. That meaning, anything that you select from this list is immediately thrown into your scene. Creating an empty game object is just a game object with only transform, so it has absolutely no visual data. It's just there until you add a mesh or some sort of thing to it. You've got your component here, which would add components to an object that you've selected. Of course, you could do this also by clicking on your object and choosing this add component button here, and it gives you the exact same list that just looks different. And of course, through here you could search as well. Now your window lets you open new windows that you don't currently have in your scene. So for example, here in our editor, we only have our scene, game, hierarchy, project, and inspector windows. But we can add our animation, profiler, asset store, version control, animator, sprite editor, and sprite packer. Right? So there's a lot of windows that you can use. I'm just going to go over the animation right here. It's very tough. Actually, I'm not going to go over animation. I'm going to make a tutorial for that afterwards. Because animation is a bit more complicated than you think. Then you've got help, obviously. Just if you need any help other than anything I could provide you, go ahead and click that button there and choose what you need. So that's about it for today. That's the pilot to our legacy tutorial series for Unity. And next episode we're going to be setting up the project. So going through some settings, again, very boring stuff, but it's got to be done at some point. Anyways, thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, comment especially if you have something that you need help with, because if I can't help you, the other people who might watch this could help you, and but most of the time I'll be able to help you. And if it's a really elaborate problem that you have, I might even make a video on it. So yeah, when in doubt, just comment, and yeah, like if you enjoyed, if you want this series to continue. I don't know, I'm just rambling on now. Just wasting a couple minutes. Anyway, yeah, thanks for watching. See you guys in the next episode.
my mind.